I've been bombarded with a horrible, painful sense of fear and sadness. I watched, I saw some of the coverage of the Trump indictment. The Trump, not the indictment, when he went to court. It's Tuesday night, and still the look on his face, And I read about what we know about the terms of the indictment. There are 38 points or 36 points or something like that, and it's all about various. Basically, the indictment takes a series of misdemeanors in 2016. It's not recently; it's 2016. Before the election, right? And kind of in a convoluted way makes them into felonies. And so it's obvious, kind of a Democrat-fueled attack on a possible contender in 2024. Make no doubt about it. It's politics. It's not about justice. It's not about everyone has to, the law. You read in like the New York Times and other papers, a lot of very, kind of holier than thou editorials about, no one is above the law. But, if it was Clinton, they would have been talking differently. They would have been saying, it was just a blowjob or what, whatever. It's a political hit job. And I understand that politics are always dirty. In America, they've always been dirty. America, is full of really politicians who've really, gone to lengths to get power, and just as Trump did, by the way. Trump did quite a lot to get power, and he got it. But there's something wrong about one party manipulating the law in such a way, in a legal way. It's illegal. It's a legitimate indictment, but for legal purpose, using the law to do politics, using the law to try to get someone to stop running in the next election, or to damage him so he cannot be elected in the next election, so he cannot, trump your candidate. And there's something, and it's just but there's more than that. It's like a symbol. It's like, it doesn't matter how much you hate Trump or hate this guy or that guy. There's something in the spectacle of a great nation that hates itself doing anything it can to grab power in a kind of a nasty, kind of self-serving way. Kind of a Gollum way, this is what the Democrats are doing, is what Gollum would do, do anything to get power, to stay in power. And it's this spectacle, and of course, the presidency is a symbol. It's more than just, other countries, in other countries, you have the prime ministers, or in Germany, you have the chancellor, who has more power as a politician than the president does in the U.S. The president, the position of president in the U.S. is very limited because all these checks and balances we have built into it. A lot of checks and balances, because the founding fathers knew that there were going to be a lot of people in the pipeline, like Trump, who were going to, who are going to use the mechanisms of power to abuse power, and so they installed a lot of checks and balances. And other countries like Germany do not have these checks and balances. It's Germany. The German chancellor has more power than the American president in his own country, much more. But part of what the president does is being a figurehead, a symbol. He's a symbol of American democracy. He's a symbol of the idea that in a democracy, anyone can be president. There is no elite that sets the presidency and makes the rules, and everyone else has to obey the rules. In other countries, there is, and in other countries, it's very seldom that someone who has not, gone to Eton, becomes prime minister of in the UK, and even then he needs permission from the Queen to be. So there's this this upper stratum of society that kind of is still there, and it's of course in a democratic country, and the Western world is entirely democratic, so it's not as much as it was, in the Middle Ages or even in the 19th century, but there is still this feeling that, and in Germany it's the same way, even though it's factually not the same thing. Merkel, who was the last one before her, Schroeder, these were not part of the elite before they became chancellor, so it's not true, but there is this feeling in Germany that there is a political caste, and if you're not in the political caste, you will never have power. Whereas someone like Trump was never in the political caste. That was one thing that people loved about him, and still do love about him. He was not in any political. He was not of any political machine. He's a guy, and this is. I don't like most of his. I don't like his international politics, and I don't like his way of governing, which is, I think, embarrassing, and that's why I have never voted for him. But there was something about his story that rings a bell with me, which resonates with me, and that's because he was this guy. He was an overprivileged guy. He came from a rich family. He got money, from his family, and he, anything he did wrong, he was bailed out. Okay. But he was never accepted by the elite. He was never he was always, all the time I knew him, I watched him, from the 80s on, he was always made fun of. The elite, the upper stratum of social of society always hated him. He was always an outsider. And I understand that. I understand that if you're an outsider, at some point, you say, I'm going to do everything I can to fuck these guys. You just say that. If they just continually make fun of you and continually look down on you, at some point, they're going to stop trying to get your acceptance, and they're going to start trying to kill you. And I'm on their side. I'm saying, you guys who are looking down on us, fuck you. That makes me on his side, even though he's a rich guy who eats McDonald's hamburgers. For me, that's better than someone like Hillary Clinton, and I voted for Hillary Clinton. I think she would have made a good president, a better president than Trump. But there was something pretentious and arrogant about her, and America is a place where we really do say anyone can be president. It's not a place for the elite. It's a place where the elite usually does have the power. Okay, so, and the rich do get richer. And it's all those horrible things you say about American capitalism, which is, it's lots and lots of money and lots of power and lots of dirty politics and dirty business. But in the end, a guy like Obama, who was, grew up in Hawaii, single mother, right? Father who was not present, people of a person of color, but half white, half black, and he went on to be president. Therefore, anyone can be president. Nixon was the son of not Puritans, of these other guys, of Goodfellows, and he became president. Trump was always an outsider. He was never in politics. His first political move was not to become a governor somewhere or a mayor of a city and then make the leap, like AOC is trying, become a congresswoman in some district that she doesn't care about and make the leap then to higher office. He didn't do that. He had a strategy. He built his career on television and and business and real estate, and he came out of nowhere and he just took the presidency. And anyone can do it. Therefore, anyone can do it. You have to have money, okay, but this is the real world. That's what happens. And I think that's probably what the Democrats hate most, because he's not part of the elite. He's not part of this social, the educated class. He's not part of that class, and they hate him for that. And then he beat them. He outsmarted them. He outsmarted Hillary Clinton and the Democratic machine. That's quite an achievement. And so they'll do anything to humiliate him, and of course to keep power. And that's the thing about the Democrats today. That's why I don't trust them anymore, because they'll do anything to get power. Most of what they do now to get power, to stay in power, to mobilize their voters, has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with leftist politics. It's all about identity politics, which is has one leg in fascism. It's about outrage. It's about button pushing. It's about rumors and bullshit. It's not about actual politics. And when I look at what they did to Trump's immigration policy, they call him as racist, and AOC, the detention centers she called the Holocaust and concentration camps, and now of course Biden is doing the same thing because he was right. Trump was right on immigration, so Biden is doing the same thing. But of course, no one calls him a fascist or a Holocaust or anything like that, because it's not. It's not about the policy. It's not about the politics. It's about the propaganda. And that's what the Democratic Party is about. It's not about doing what's right. It's not about creating a better world. And the thing is, I live here in Germany, and I look at the papers here, the newspapers here, and I see that they pick up in a rather naive way, unquestioning way, everything that in left-leaning papers is written. Anything that's written in left-leaning papers. And so when the New York Times, publishes a lot of bullshit, which is half false or half innuendo about the right, the papers here in Germany pick it up and they amplify it. And everyone gets outraged. Everyone gets outraged, and everyone thinks that America is, the worst place in the world. And they really do. And so the more Americans think of themselves as the worst place in the world, even though it is the best place in the world, based on principles that you can count, it's qualifying on qualifying principles, on things that you can rationalize. There's a kind of a general destabilization of progress. I feel that the American left, in order to get and keep in power, is vilifying their own country, and in that way instrumentalizing or mobilizing, their constituency by vilifying their own country. And this vilification is amplified outside of the country, and everyone outside of the country just says, well, if Americans hate themselves, they must be a horrible country. So, they look at the, outside of the country, if Germans look at the American immigration, they look at AOC saying this is a concentration camp, and they say, oh, this is terrible. This is American is racist, and then, but they don't look at the actual facts, which is, if you look at, how many people died, how many people coming up from Latin America into the U.S. During the Obama years who died on the border is, I think it's like 200. No, I think it's like 600 or 400 or something. And then during the Trump years, it's half that. It's like 200 or 300 people died. But if you look at in the same time period, the people who crossed from Africa and the Mediterranean tried to get into Europe, into Italy, it was like 2,500 people died in the Mediterranean and the Europeans didn't do anything about it because they didn't care. But they spent a lot of time looking at America saying, oh, this is racist, they're evil, this is a bad, So the more Americans vilify themselves and learn to hate themselves for political reasons in order to leverage the left into power and keep the left in power, I think the more a kind of destabilization takes place. Back in the 70s when I was growing up, and the 70s were similar today because, the left was over the top in the 70s like it is today. My old dad used to have discussions around the dinner table, and he would talk about things like, he was faced with hippies. He would force us to cut our hair short so we wouldn't become hippies. He was really afraid of the hippies, too afraid. But still, I get that now. Now I understand that, his fear. But he would talk about things like, what does it take for a great empire to fall? And he would compare the U.S. with the cat is complaining over in the corner. Now, do you heard the cat? Okay. Let me go let the cat out of the room. Hold on, I'll be right back. I'm talking about Dad, somehow Edward Gibbons. Okay, cat. You win, as always. Go. So he would compare the coming fall, the possible fall of the U.S. with the fall of Rome. And he had read, I don't think he had read the entire Edward Gibbons, the fall and the rise and fall of Rome, the rise and decline of Rome. It's like 7 volumes. It's a huge book. But I'm sure you read a short version or something. And he would compare it with Rome. And he would say again and again, Rome was not destroyed because of the barbarians coming in from outside. It was destroyed because of inner decadence, because Rome had lost the belief in itself. Rome had stopped believing in itself, had become so prosperous that it didn't need to believe, that it didn't need anything, that it was just all about its own prosperity, it's about its own, pleasure, and it lost its strength to defend itself, and then it kind of collapsed. I don't know if that's true. A historian, may argue with that, but I do see a similarity in America today. I do see a destabilization. I do see Americans, for no reason whatsoever, except for, political propaganda, losing faith in themselves and their own country and their own thing. And that's too bad because, a lot of countries outside of America hate America and wish America to fall, including most European countries. A lot of European countries hate America. There's a huge amount of anti-Americanism here in Germany. And but the thing is, when we do fall, Europe falls after. And then they're going to ask, what went wrong? What happened to America? America's supposed to be here saving us, and where are they? But we have already destroyed ourselves. And this whole thing with this whole spectacle, this whole circus with Trump, it seems like that's what we're doing. I'm kind of waiting for and expecting, as this court case continues, it's going to be like an OJ thing. It's going to be all over the news. Even though it's really about misdemeanors. It's about prostitutes extorting a presidential candidate, threatening to talk to the press if he doesn't give her money. That's what this is about, and it's going to be a big thing. And in the end, and I think he'll probably win. I think he has pretty good, I'm sure he has better lawyers than the state of New York. But if he loses and he has to go to jail, and Biden doesn't pardon him immediately so that he doesn't set one foot in jail, I think that's kind of like the beginning of the end of something here. That's the vision I have in my head, that I can't get out of my head, and that is making me so sad and so horribly, just disappointed in the whole way this thing is taking, the glee with which people are Americans are destroying their own country, and it's starting from the left. I mean, the right, also has not done anything right, but this is on the left now. I just feel horrible about it. I feel horrible about the whole thing. Well, we'll see. And frankly, okay, let's look at the good. Let's turn this around. Let's reverse this. We're talking horrible, bad, tragic, sad. Let's go back and see the good. All through history, all through the United States history, there's always been horrible presidents, horrible, political actions, horrible senators. That we've had, the Aaron Burr, the duel, murder. We've had slander. We've had, all kinds of sex scandals. We've had all kinds of horrible things. The American democracy is a populist democracy, right? And so we've all had these, but we have always survived, and it's always come out good. So, okay, so there's that. So anything that happens that is bad and horrible, and any lengths, any depths a political party stoops to gain or keep power, it's been done before, and we've survived it before. And in the end, there are always enough people out there striving for some kind of good, striving to make things better, striving to see the good in other people, striving to be fair, striving to see what the other side means when it says something, instead of just being automatically outraged about it. There are always good people out there, and in general, on average, throughout history of the Western world, the good was always victorious over the evil. Sometimes late, but in the end, the good was always victorious. So I would propose that in the end, even though I'm sad now, things will turn out okay. That's what I tell myself, and I hope they will. I hope it will also turn out okay for all of you. I hope you guys are fine. Whether you are pro or anti-Trump, pro-Biden, anti-Trump, anti-Biden, whether you hate me for, saying what I've said, or love me for it, fuck you or fuck you not. You're probably right. You guys all have your own opinion, and it's probably a better opinion than mine. So I wish you all the best. I wish you everything good. Good night.